We're showing you here one of the best pilots in the world, flying the gliders in one of the prettiest areas in the world. And we want to show you how the right pilot should match the right glider. This combination, that works perfectly. In the other case, the wrong pilot on maybe the wrong glider doesn't match.
The beginning of our story takes us back to the birth of the DHV classification system and the central reference point for glider manufacture. NOVA test pilot Tony Bender and DHV Chief Safety Officer Karl Slasak tell us about the DHV classification system and how it evolved over time.
I mean, the first years we had no certification, we just could fly every glider. And after a short period of time, it was quite clear that some of the gliders were good flyable and others were quite dangerous. I was also DHV test pilot at that time for hang gliders, so we decided to create something new for paragliders. And it was really necessary because especially in the beginning nobody knew really what is safe, what is unsafe, what can happen, and if it collapses, if it reopens after collapse, what happens if it stalls and so on.
Yeah, since the time the Hang Gliding Federation and Tony founded the Gütesiegel, it changes a lot of things in these years, and we changed construction rules, the Gütesiegel rules, several times, always in order to get more objectivity for the pilot, to get more objectivity in the test results and in the test reports. Just last year we decided to split the class 1 to 2 because we realized that the range is too big, and we have to split it in gliders which are suitable for beginners and students, and others which are suitable for advanced pilots.
So what they changed was only for side collapse and accelerated side collapse, the wings may only go in front until 45 degrees. So and the goal of that was to have only really safe gliders in class 1 to 2 and to have the high performance 1 to 2 gliders now in class 2.
We asked a selection of recreational pilots about their motives leading to their choice of glider class.
It's a class 2 glider, and my decision was because of the handling about 2 years ago, the last flight, in summer of 2002.
Okay, it's class 1, and I fly since 12 years, and I choose it since I have a better feeling under a class 1. I already had higher classes, class 2, but class 1 is now as good as earlier class 2.
And I'm flying a 1 to 2 class, and for me was the decision why this class: security. That's the only point.
I'm flying class 2, and I like it because it's a bit more sportive and dynamic, and I love it. Because when you fly in thermals, it's easier to handle the thermals and to get up. Don't know.
Since when are you flying?
1991.
So for 13 years now.
13 years now, yeah.
Yeah, I'm flying a 1-2 glider because I like the safety of it. And yeah, before I was flying a 2. And from the performance, I think it's not a big difference, especially if you fly like me only. The mountain's not a big cross-country flyer, so yeah, I choose to take a 1-2 again.
How long are you flying now?
5-6 years.
In the following scenes, we will not only see how gliders in different DHV classes behave during some DHV-required test maneuvers, but, equally importantly, how pilot input plays a pivotal role in these quite common and possibly rather dangerous flying situations, namely asymmetric collapse, front collapse, and deep stable spiral. Maneuvers were carried out with 3 different NOVA wings in order to show the contrast in the different classes. The wings were a yellow Syntax, a low 1-2, a red Artax, high level 1-2, and a blue Aeron, a performance 2 wing.
What happens aerodynamically if a glider collapses?
Yeah, of course. At the beginning, all the glider is carrying all the weight together, and then half of the wing is missing. So the rest has to carry all the weight, and of course has to accelerate. And so you have this turning movement. This half is accelerating, this half is braking. So, but you can help the open side by just braking. Then the airfoil is more curved, so it's producing more lift, and it's also producing more drag. You have a stability, and the glider is flying straight out. How does the DHV test the asymmetric collapse?
The DHV makes in all classes, doesn't matter if high performance or class 1, between 55 and 70% collapses, and then they see what happens. They don't react, they just see what happens. This is the first test they do. And afterwards they make also collapses and hold the brake on the other side to see if it is possible to fly straight or make even a little turn to the other side.
A problem every pilot experienced is the asymmetric collapse. What does the statistic tell us about it?
Yes, the statistic tells us the same. It's a big problem, and it's the main cause of paragliding accidents, especially in ground level, close to the ground, about 10 and 30 meters above the ground. Nearly 30% of all paraglider accidents happened after asymmetric collapses close to the ground. Okay, when we look at these accidents after asymmetric collapse, we see that 70% of these pilots are not reacting at all, and they do not stabilize the glider, and about 30% are overreacting.
Over collapse and then waf.
What can you do wrong when you have an asymmetric collapse with the class 1-2 wing?
With a class 1-2 wing you can also make mistakes. For example, if you have a big collapse and you get frightened, you make an overreaction. But it is clear that the class 1-2 glider has much more safety and much more stability, and also if it collapses everything goes very slow. So that means it doesn't turn very fast, it doesn't go in front very far. So the pilot has much more time to react, and he cannot make so many mistakes like with a high performance glider, for example.
And with the high performance wing like the Aeron?
With a high performance wing, if you are too slow, for example, you have a big collapse and you are too slow, the glider goes in front very fast, very far. Maybe it reopens very fast, the other side collapses, and then it can get tangled, for example, if you don't react at all. And It's clear, if the pilot is good, it doesn't matter if he flies syntax or Aeron, because after collapse he makes the right reaction. That means he takes the right brake slowly and tries to fly straight. And the good thing with 1 to 2 gliders is you have a lot of time. You can also make little mistakes. The glider doesn't really make big problems, but with the high performance gliders you should be exactly knowing what you're doing. Every pilot should do a safety training, especially if he has a new wing, and get used to all the situations. If you're over water, you can simulate first small collapses, then bigger collapses, and then a really big collapse, and you will see that you can control it easily. And if you're really used to your glider, you will fly very safe in practice.
During a front stall, the whole wing is losing the lift in one moment and is producing lots of drag. So the pilot is still flying forward and the lift is away, so the whole system is falling. And then it has to reinflate and producing all the lift again. And most of the time the gliders, the best thing is the glider is reinflating from the middle on, so that there is no danger of frontal horseshoes.
The accident statistics tell us that the front collapse is of course a problem, but compared with asymmetric collapse, the problem is not so big. For example, we had about 50 accidents after asymmetric collapse and 10 after front collapses.
How does the DHV test the frontal collapse?
The DHV flies trim speed and also full speed. They take both A-risers, pull them down and make collapses until 30 or 40%, the whole leading edge. And then they also look what happens. They see if the glider reopens or not. My experience is that front stalls in practice are softer, for example in thermals or even in turbulences, and the front stalls which I simulate are always more aggressive. As we said before, most of the accidents happen close to the ground. The first thing you can do wrong is having a front collapse close to the ground and don't react or react too low. That's the first thing you can do wrong. The second thing is you have a front stall, get really frightened and take the brakes down too far and stall the glider. If you have a front stall, the glider goes back first. It's clear, the pilot has the same speed, the glider goes back. Then it comes back in front, and most of the time the middle part reopens. And I think most of the people then realize they have a front stall. But at that special point the glider is very slow. If you brake now too much, it's very easy to stall the glider. The 1 to 2 class glider has more brake trouble, and also the class 1 to 2 gliders, they don't have, for example, stable front stalls, which 2 to 3 class gliders can have. So in 95% of every case, the 1 to 2 glider opens really fast by itself.
You demonstrated very impressive the overreaction after a front stall on the Aeron.
Yeah, it was a typical worst case situation. Yeah, I started like this. I made a big front collapse and then I overreacted, like somebody wanted to open it, but I pulled the brakes too hard and yeah, I stalled the glider and then I released the brakes. And it was probably it was officially the worst case to do, because the glider just was behind me, like starting a stall, and then I released the brake, and for sure the glider have to shoot radical forward, and then yeah, the last bit we didn't see because the camera was moving, but it shows up what can happen if you do the wrong thing.
So the right reaction if you have a front stall would be the glider goes back, you just take the brakes down, because then the glider anyway will come in front again and will be already open. And you also can provide that it goes too far in front, which is especially a problem with some high performance gliders.
A maneuver which is coming more and more into the focus is the deep spiral.
Into the focus and also into the accident statistics.
Yeah, the problem with the deep spiral is that you have another stable situation. Same as in normal static flight, you have a stable situation. You have another one in deep spiral because you have the central fugal force forcing the pilot to go out, and then the inside half of the wing has more angle of attack, is producing of course more lift, more drag. The outside half of the wing has less angles of attack, less lift, less drag, and so you have this asymmetric situation that keeps the glider in this spiral.
One of the main problems with spiral is that the pilots have problems with this extreme force in the spiral, and they get problems like blackout or loss of orientation.
The deep spiral is a problem, I think, because people weight shift in when they start to do a deep spiral, and I think they stay in. And I tried that with many gliders. The normal way to get in is you take in the weight, take the inside brake, the outside brake is open, then you have a curve, the curve is getting steeper, 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 and suddenly you will realize that the glider goes on its nose. And that's the moment where the glider also tries you to get out, you know, the harness on the outside. And I think this is the moment where people stay in with the harness, they go against that force. And then if you do that, this spiral is stable. So if I go in a spiral, I go in with my weight, I take the brake, and as soon as the glider gets on the nose, it takes me out, and I control the rest of the spiral only with the inside brake. And also when it goes on the nose, I brake a little bit on the outside, and then the important thing is to control the speed. As soon as I feel uncomfortable, I make it a bit slower. Take the outside brake a little bit more, release the inside brake, and control the sink speed. So I never make the sink speed so high that I get blackouts or that I feel bad. And if you control it like that, it's no problem. And if you want to stop it, you do the same thing like in the beginning. You just take the outside brake, release the inside brake, and just go slowly out. And there also it's important that if you need 3 turns to get in, you also make 3 turns to get out. So you avoid that the glider goes really fast and steep in the sky.
It's extremely important to choose the right flying technical in the spiral, especially when you get into the spiral dive. A lot of pilots make the mistake that they don't control the sinking speed. So it's important to control the sinking speed with the opposite control, with the brake of the opposite side, and also with your weight shift.
Nearly every glider stays in the steep spiral if the pilot puts the weight completely on the inside. So the important point is, as soon as the glider goes on the nose, weight on the outside. If you stay with your weight completely in, you go down really fast.
The general problem is that a big wing curve is helping us in handling. It makes the glider less stable, so it easily banks up, more easy turns, but with the more wing curve, more easy stays in the deep spiral. So it's a tendency now that designers are curving the wings more, and so more accepting the danger that the glider is spiraling stable.
In order to achieve the right balance between performance and handling in different classes, many hours go into the development and testing of each glider.
Yeah, of course, the computer nowadays can do a lot. So you can do structural analysis of the glider, you can do, of course, airstream analysis of the glider, of the profile. But into the step to the reality, you have two points. First is you have to be sure that the glider in practice is matching the model you have in the computer. So we do lots of pictures in flight to check out if the shape is really the one we wanted. And on the other hand, the computer can do a lot, but he never can do everything. So the test pilots do lots of practical tests. We do lots of changes in line lengths to check out different wing curves, to check out different angles of attack, to check out which borders we have in this concept. And then when we get more and more into detail, we're transferring these conclusions we got from the practical model into the computer model, recalculate it and build the next prototype. And so on and on, we're getting both models are matching more and more, the practical and the computer model. Yeah, since the beginning we are very performance oriented. So in every class we want to have the best performance possible. So we're spending lots of time doing performance comparisons between different wings and try to improve the performance as much as possible. So I don't want to just give away performance for nothing. So every performance loss should have a very big gain on the other side, like a big step in safety or big step in handling. And it's different from case to case. Sometimes you have to fight for small performance gains. We have to build 10 prototypes and cannot really increase the performance. And sometimes it's just a present. Like last year for the syntax, we did not think, or the computer did not forecast that there will be such a big performance step. And so we're talking about the syntax effect. So the glider is so simple, has such a small aspect ratio, but finally it has a better performance as high performance wings we built a few years ago.
Regardless, if you're flying a low-level 1 to 2 or a performance 2 to 3 glider, it's important that you not only know the in-flight characteristics of your wing, but are capable of controlling your glider in every possible flying situation. For those already flying or planning to fly a performance wing, it is recommended to be logging at least 100 flights each and every year.
Another critical maneuver is the front stall. What does this Entschuldigung. Statistic. Yeah. Another critical maneuver is the front stall. What does the statistic? Das the statistic.
Was das Statistik?
Another critical maneuver is the front stall. What does the statistic tell us? What does the statistic? Jetzt ist es Zeit, dass wir fertig werden. Kannst du dir vorstellen, dass du... When you want to get higher, you have to fly over.
I had the pleasure of flying a Syntax today, and I felt really comfortable.
Yes, yes. So we're here in a landing place, and you flew. You flew
You flew.
Yeah.
Yes, I flew.
So we're here in a landing place. You've been our Syntax pilot today. Which glider are you flying normally? Zack.
Normal, ich bin 5 Mal geflogen. So 150.
Geht's noch? Now we're here in a landing place. I've been our Syntax pilot today. Normally you're flying in Artax. What were the differences?
Yeah, perfect.
We still hear the
Yeah, still
Yes, it's
here.
getting darker.
Yeah, you could do it. Darker, darker, darker. Yeah, but despite of the same classification, the characteristics. Sorry. Okay. So.
I'm always okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So that time ago we had to build 20 prototypes, worked for 1 year, and now it works already. So our test pilots have much less work now.
You need a bit more.
Shit. Flash.